Hello MGMT 320 class. Just a note to say that my business trip has been extended, and therefore we will not be meeting next Tuesday in class, April 21st, because I can't be there. Unfortunately, I'm in Oklahoma City, and I'll be here till that Thursday of that week. Anyways, again, we will not be meeting in class for April 21st. Instead, I'm instructing you to complete all of the Module 5 activities. Later on in this recording, I will identify and go through the different activities you need to complete. Also, today in this recording, I will be conducting a brief review of Chapter 4. And then I want to remind you that the group project outline is due at the end of week 5, which is April 27th. A note to the project managers, the PMs: if any of your group members is not communicating, they're not contributing or reaching out to the group, I want you to let me know as soon as you can. Okay. Remember, this group project will be graded not only with what you deliver, but also how well or not you cooperate and work as a team. All right. So if you open your book to page 88, chapter 4, we will talk a little bit about the development life cycle. In other words, another word you could use for development is design, the design life cycle. But our text and most industry folks refer to it as the development life cycle. Later on in your studies or career, you will be exposed to it, or maybe you're doing it now. Anyways, the systems development process as it applies to ERP implications will be discussed. Go to page 91, and right there at the top of page 91, the first paragraph, that's a good definition of SDLC, or Systems Development Lifecycle. It is the process of developing new information systems. It's often called the Systems Development Lifecycle. It basically includes a systematic process of planning, designing, and creating information systems for organizations. The task can become very complex when the system has to support thousands of business processes for several hundred users, both inside and outside an organization. As you can see, this task of developing an info system it is very complex. The text goes on to say, for complex systems development projects, for example, ERP, it's a complex project. It is often better to have a structured methodology to avoid mishaps and coordinate the design and development tasks properly among the members of a large systems development team. So when you have a large organization, when you have lots of users, and you're trying to bring this new system into the organization, you need a method, you need a proven method to help you during the development or design phases of information system design. Therefore, SDLC is the approach that most organizations use. Basically, SDLC states that complex problems need to be broken up into smaller, manageable problems using what our text calls a systems hierarchy. Therefore, the SDLC process requires both technical and non-technical problem-solving skills. So if you look at page 91, figure 4-11, that's a good graphic of the SDLC process or steps that take place in SDLC. For example, number 1, we begin with investigate, analyze is 2, design 3, implement 4, and maintain 5. That is the process in And figure 4-2 talks about the SDLC approach. As you can see, at the top it begins with systems investigation, then on to analysis, then design, implementation, and at the end, what they call operations maintenance, step 5. Sometimes during the implementation process, for example, in step 4, sometimes it's necessary for us to try to see if this new system that we're bringing into the organization will work. Therefore, we like to use prototypes. For example, on page 92, where it talks about rapid SDLC approaches, well, the prototype approach is a rapid SDLC approach. Notice this approach does not go through the analysis and design phases of SDLC. Instead, it implements a skeleton or a prototype of the actual system with a focus on input and output. The idea is to demonstrate the system functionality as soon as possible. Notice the system functionality. We want to see if this new system is going to work, so therefore we create a prototype. Next, go to page 94, where it talks about ERP implementation plan. An ERP implementation plan is used to create a roadmap or blueprint to meet cost, scope, and time constraints of an implementation task. There are three major implementation plan choices. Make a note of that. The number 1 approach is called the comprehensive approach. Next, we have the middle of the road, and then we have the vanilla approach. Understand what all 3 approaches are, and when will it be a good time to use those 3 approaches. Next, go to page 96. And on 96, it talks about the traditional ERP lifecycle. Similar to the ESDLC, ERP has its own approach, which they call ERP lifecycle. Like the traditional SDLC, which we discussed earlier, the traditional ERP lifecycle approach has a deliverable at the end of each stage. End user or people involvement is critical in both the SDLC and ERPLC. The emphasis on ERPLC is implementation is on customizing the software as well as changing business processes. If you look at figure 4-5 on page 96, similar to the SDLC, we have steps or stages. For example, stage 1, and this is for ERP lifecycle, is what they call scope and planning. Next, analysis and design. Number 3, acquisition and development. Number 4 on page 98 is implementation stage. And then step 5 on page 99, operation stage. These are unique to ERP lifecycle. During stage 4 on page 98, it talks about implementation stage, right? When we implement a system, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at figure 4-6 on 98. 4 approaches that we could take to implement this new ERP system, this new info system that we're bringing into the organization. Figure 4-6 talks about different approaches, and they are phased, pilot, parallel, and big bang. Try to understand what these the plus or the benefits and drawbacks of each of these approaches. One of the things we have to keep in mind whenever we're bringing an info system into the organization is that whenever we bring a new system, it always creates change to either the way we communicate, the way we process things, or we deliver things. Therefore, we need to be conscious and aware that this change that's coming into the organization needs to be managed. And notice at the bottom of page 99 where it says the first paragraph on the heading role of change management, it says system failures often occur when the attention is not devoted to this, meaning this change from the beginning. Let's take a little pause. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about what our text calls the rapid ERP life cycle on page 99. Sometimes we need to develop, we need to implement, we need to design an info system quickly. There are some methodologies available to you to allow you to do just that. For example, technology changes quickly. We have deadlines. The competition is fierce, so we need to develop, purchase, and implement this new ERP system that's going to help us, for example, stay competitive, stay in business, and so on. Therefore, we need to apply rapid development, implementation methodologies. So beginning with page 99 and on, our text talks about the different methodologies available for us. For example, one of the rapid methodology approaches to ERP lifecycle implementations, the first one is what the industry refers to as the total solution. That's one. Pay careful attention to the different things you need to do with total solution. For example, the first task you need to do is what they call the value proposition. Number two is the reality check, and so on. The next rapid development approach is what they call the fast track on page 101. Similar to total solution, the fast track has different phases. You try to understand what those phases are. The third rapid development approach is what they call the accelerated SAP, or they use the acronym ASAP. And again, there's several phases in ASAP that must be addressed. The next methodology is what they call the business and integration methodology, or BIM. That's on page 103. And then the last one, and the one I like, it's on page 104, which they call the agile development methodology. Agile meaning it's flexible, it's scalable, and pretty much it adapts to your needs. Again, try to identify some of the pros and the cons of these 5 different ERP approaches to implementation. Okay, now we're on page 105. Okay, beginning with page 105, it talks about the ERP lifecycle versus the SDLC. There's differences between ERP lifecycle and SDLC. Make sure you understand what those differences are. One of the things right on top of my head is that SDLC is longer. It takes longer to use SDLC when you're trying to develop an ERP system. Therefore, ERP has its own approach to developing info systems. But it's always good to know the differences between the two. So our text does a good job on page 106, specifically table 4-3. It compares and contrasts both approaches. So try to study that and notice some of the things that are better with SDLC or ERP lifecycle. Okay, the next section, I want to talk a little bit more about project management, and basically because this applies to your group project. So I'm going to do a part 2 to a chapter review. Okay, so just finish watching the first part and then also watch the part 2, which I'll be addressing some of the things that our text talks about project management. Okay, so